Welcome to the Leading at the Next Level podcast with Dove Development and Consulting, the show built to provide ongoing support for your leadership journey. Before we move into today's lesson, like always, let's make sure that we're on the same page. Cindy and I have seen firsthand how much more is required to provide authentic leadership to a team than to simply manage based on the authority that comes with a title or position. What we've learned through more than 50 combined years of leadership responsibility is that taking the extra steps to serve people and earn that influence will always produce results that barking orders never will. Now, if you'll stick with us to the end of the episode, we'll share how you can get complimentary trial to a resource we've built that's like nothing else you've ever seen. Now, with that in mind, it's time to get to work. We're going to pick up the process of digging into profitability killers. This time, we're going to dig specifically into how it's important for us as leaders to answer the cries for help from our team. Here we go. Over the last while, we've worked through each of the profitability killers. As we work through each of them individually, my goal has really been to provide you with some basic and practical steps that you can take in applying some specific behaviors that will really help you communicate with and lead your team members more effectively. And ideally making a measurable difference in your organization's bottom line. That's the goal. And I honestly believe that based on the results that I've seen personally, that putting even a few of these steps into place can result in significant productivity increases and huge gains in your overall profitability. That said, much of the perspective that I've used to address each profitability killer has really been based on it just being logical and the right thing to do. There's one point of view that I've been really intentional. I've intentionally avoided until now, though. And that's the perspective of so many people in society today who are just begging for great leadership. Now, Cindy and I, we've heard John Maxwell comment on something that he sees as he develops leaders around the world, and he says that far too often, as he does the work that he does worldwide, he's left feeling what he calls leadership sad. Now, he says so many families, churches, civic organizations, you name it, basically any type of group that we could possibly think of, they fall short of providing the kind of effective leadership that each of us truly deserve. Now, as we think back to each of the individual profitability killers that we've worked through together in this process, I'll challenge you with yet another question. Have you ever stopped to consider what are they looking for? And do the individuals that you've accepted responsibility for leading, what do they need most from you? I often talk about how much I still enjoy many of the hair bands from the 80s and early 90s and so on. Quite honestly, there's only been a handful of bands that I've really listened to since. One of those, which might at this point be one of my top 10 favorite bands of all time, is called Alter Bridge. Now, interestingly enough, they've been hugely successful in Europe, but they've just received a fraction of that same kind of attention here in the States, in spite of being just incredible musicians. And their singer is, he plays guitar too, but he also has one of the best voices, the widest ranges of a singer I've ever heard. Now, in case you've never heard of them, three of the members, the lead guitar player, the bass player, and the drummer, they were all in Creed. And then they got this good singer who also plays guitar, and it just unleashed their potential. It's just amazing. In 2016, they released a song called Show Me a Leader that included these lyrics. Now, I want you to bear with me on this, okay? It says, delusioned and tired of waiting for the one whose intentions are pure, unpersuaded, we can trust. Because a promise is never enough. We need to know this is not the end. How will we ever get by? It's getting harder to fight out here on our own. Show me a leader that won't compromise. Show me a leader so hope never dies. Show me a leader that knows what's right. Show me a leader so hope can survive. We need a hero this time, or we will never survive. Gosh, that's clearly not the entire song. I'd really encourage you to check it out on your own, even if you don't like that style of music. The words really speak. Now, while the opening verse that I didn't reference here seems to have a little bit more of a political slant, which is fitting today as it was then when they wrote it, it didn't really grab me like the rest of the song when I first heard it. Truth be told, the portion that I shared with you here captures the essence of what I've heard so many people from so many great people from different industries. What I've heard from them, and they've just been yearning for show me that leader that Alter Bridge talked about. Now, without somebody in leadership with pure intentions, any one of us can lose a level of hope, right? And without a leader who won't compromise their values, it's most certainly a harder fight. And if we're struggling just to get by, I'm not sure how much profitability we can expect to survive. So we can tie all that back, and I think we will see it. So I'm going to ask you again, do you know what they're looking for from you as your leader, as their leader? Have you heard their requests, however subtle they may be? And as we wind down this look at how much profitability is killed by poor leadership, we're going to look at the impact bad managers can have on their employees. And we'll look at what we can do to provide our teams with the support they need. First, though, what we need to do is identify what every team member needs from their leader. So if we're really tuned in to what our team members are looking for from us as their leaders, we need to be intentional about providing them with the support that they're going to need to accomplish their goals. Now, some of those goals tie right back to daily, weekly, monthly productivity. But those goals could just as easily be measured by where those folks want to go through their careers, how they want to grow individually. In either case, the support that we provide them, or the lack thereof, is often the difference between success and failure. In an article from Forbes, it was called 10 Ways Managers Can Support Employee Career Growth. Um, it shared that this emphasizing the importance a leader plays in their team member success and how their individual success can impact the entire company. It said, suppose managers neglect to have important conversations with their employees about career goals. In the case, in that case, they could risk having their most talented workers feel like they aren't appreciated, hurting morale and productivity. Showing employees that they have the support of both the company and the manager in their career advancement can lead to better retention and company growth overall. In a Harvard Business Review article called Making Sure Your Employees Succeed, the author quoted a lady named Linda Hill, who was the professor of business administration at Harvard Business School, as saying a manager's job is to provide supportive autonomy that's appropriate to the person's level of capacity. That article went on to say that the key is to be hands on while giving your people the room they need to succeed on their own. In yet another article from the of Human Resource Management called 5 Ways Managers Can Help Employees Achieve Their Performance Goals, the author points to the importance of ongoing communication with employees rather than just the traditional review process once or twice a year. They quoted someone named DJ Castro was saying people typically shut down once they hear their rating in that annual or semi-annual review, especially if they didn't get the highest rating. And I think we can all relate to that in some way. Now, each of these articles, clearly, they have got direct ties to formal performance evaluations and long-term career development, both of which are critical in how we support our team members. And as we discussed, when we looked at how poor promotions and unclear expectations, we looked at those things. Each of those also kill profitability. Now, for our purposes here, I want you to really consider this whole thing from a deeper perspective. I want you to consider how much it means to each individual that we lead when they know we've got their back in every aspect of the role. How we're there for them when they make a mistake, how we notice when something's bothering them, and how we're willing to help them grow in whatever direction they want their career to take. Now, if we can provide that kind of support, we'll be well on our way to proving that our intentions are pure and unpersuaded. And we're going to learn a level of that trust that just won't be found through annual reviews alone. But as Miles Kennedy said when he sang that song for Alter Bridge, he said, a promise is never enough. Now, I realize this all seems like a lot, and it most certainly is. Something I've heard far too many business owners, executives, and even managers comment on is how needy their people can be, often referring to them as high maintenance when they need a little bit more guidance or direction than was provided in the proverbial memo. And if you missed my sarcasm, think of the TPS reports from Office Space, right? Did you get the memo? Um, and oh my gosh. So before we risk taking that same approach, I believe it's going to serve us well to really think about what kind of support we've each received from a great leader at some point in our own career. So, after a couple references to a song as recent as 2016, I feel like I need to call time out here and mix in something from the hairband era just to make sure that I maintain a little bit of my street cred. So let's think of terms for this slide in along the lines of "Shelter Me" by one of what I believe is one of the most talented bands that was ever in that hairband genre, Cinderella. After he listed several different vices that people resort to, including his own, being rock and roll. Tom Kiefer sang about how we all need just a little shelter and it'll be all right. Now, I'm not singing, and that's intentional because I can't sing, but you get the point, right? Now, in all seriousness, I believe that whole idea of we all need a little shelter ties right in with our leadership responsibility. If we're willing to care enough about our team members to recognize what they're looking for and give them the support that they deserve, we can never brush them off as being needy. Heck, we might even end up being that shelter if we can do that for them. Now, if we're being completely honest with ourselves, I'm sure we can all point to any number of times where a great leader made a lasting impact on us when many a supervisor or manager that weren't necessarily leading would have considered us as being needy. Now, as I've mentioned several times before, I've been blessed to have worked with several outstanding leaders over the last few decades, and each of them have played a very significant role in my own professional, personal development. Gosh, I'm forever grateful. One, though, when it comes to this, stands out more on this particular profitability killer than the others do. And it's not necessarily because he was better, it was just more about the timing and the type of leadership he provided. So in 2014, after close to 2 decades with the same company, which was exactly half my life at that point, I made a really, really tough decision to change careers. I'd worked extremely hard in that organization. I'd achieved a fair amount of success, both locally and with the teams that I served and supported across North America. That said, I no longer felt like I had the support from the folks I reported to. Think back to that "show me a leader whose intentions are pure and unpersuaded and won't compromise." It had indeed gotten much harder to fight, and my hope, at least in that organization, was really struggling to survive. Now, quite honestly, it hurt to even be in that spot where I felt like moving on was really the only option that I had. And while I'd certainly had some great opportunities during my time, the decision was still really tough because I had so many strong relationships there, and I'd given so much to earn those relationships. Now, changing gears though, from the first interview I had with a small company, the one that I ended up joining when I left, I felt a great connection with the guy that I ended up reporting to directly. We worked side by side most days. He was several years younger than me and the son of one of the owners, but he was very, very genuine and he was as humble as anybody had ever met. He had significantly more experience in that specific industry. And gosh, as I got to know him more, he had some remarkably unique experience outside that industry that I don't have time for here. But he didn't have nearly as much overall safety or human resource experience as I did, yet I was working for him, and that was okay. None of that, however, had anything to do with what I felt like made him such an effective leader. He was extremely confident in his own role, but he was also very quick to shine a light on everybody around him for their individual contributions. And that was such a breath of fresh air after being involved with several others in leadership roles, absolutely not effective leaders, though, who were far more interested in their own accolades than they were ever in ensuring anybody around them had the support they needed. Now, as you can imagine, there's far more to the story, but the details aren't the point here. What I want you to consider is how much value you've gotten from the great leaders that you've worked with to this point in your career. And I want you to think about how many of the folks reporting to you have gotten that same kind of support. Now, with the impact a great leader can make being fresh on your mind, let's kind of change gears and let's consider how bad managers affect employees and how that bad leadership really does kill profitability. Thanks for listening to the Leading at the Next Level podcast. Next time, we'll pick up this look where we left off in our look at the importance of answering the cry for help by digging into how bad leaders can just kill profitability. Now, if you'd like to go deeper into anything that we've shared here already, or you just need continuing education credits for a professional credential, send us an email at admin at dove-development.net, and we'd be happy to hook you up with a 45-day all-access trial to our complete Leading at the Next Level program at no cost. Now, this program includes access to well over 100 hours of digital lessons, complete with slides and action-based assessments to really help you capture measurable bottom line improvements in your organization. It also includes access to typically 2 new live lessons each month with Q&A, so we can really work with you to identify the specific action steps that you want to take to lead your team more effectively.